Hello, this is Lama Tantrapa. Welcome to our live broadcast dedicated to restoring sanity and peace of mind despite the turmoil of the United States elections. That's right. This is the craziest elections that has ever we experienced in the United States. As a new citizen of the United States, I definitely was shocked to experience this kind of animosity and uh, intensity of the political campaigning. And I'm sure that thousands, if not millions, of our viewers will also be glad to discover that it's possible to restore sanity. Now, I want to thank you, first of all, for joining us, and if you are a U.S. citizen, for voting for the president and senators and other elected officials today. It's fantastic that we have the opportunity to vote and express our opinion and desires and ability to manifest the dreams that we all have for ourselves, our families, our communities, and our countries. Of course, there is a lot of anxiety that's going on right now in people's minds. And perhaps you are also stressed out or anxious about the outcome of the elections or just simply the level of intensity and potential violence associated with this election. Now, first of all, I would like to look into why is it so intense? Why is it so unfriendly? And of course, it's because people have tendency to believe that they are right. That essentially the self-righteousness is what creates this level of atrocity in the political campaigning. And first of all, this self-righteousness is based on belief in good and bad. So those people who believe in strictly delineated good and bad principles, they will likely to associate themselves with goodness and cast the label of badness onto everybody who's not with them or who is associated with the alternative perspective. And so what happens is people get in this dualistic black and white perception of reality. So they look at the other person, oh, you are a Democrat or you're a Republican, you're bad. And of course, those who are on the same side, they're good. This type of dualism creates a massive division between people. In other words, people are focusing on that which is dividing them, which is separate, rather than paying attention to what's common among them. Imagine for a moment what the political process would be like, or just life on this planet would be like, if we focused more on those things that unite us rather than on those things that separate us. That would be an amazing transformation of consciousness, once and for all. This is how we wage peace. If you want to wage war, focus on that which separates you from others, and you're guaranteed to experience much more animosity or a desire to push other people away, or perhaps defeat them. And so what happens? We go into wars. That's how we wage wars. We focus on things that separate us from each other. Now, I would like to offer to you the most amazing, simple, and elegant practice based on energy awareness today that will not only nip in the bud the anxiety associated with this election, but will allow you to find balance between any polarizing scenarios, or within any polarizing scenarios, between any polarizing points of view or political platforms or any other situations in which you feel that there's a strong division between one side and the other. Now, it's based on simple understanding that even though there's a big divide between the Republicans and Democrats, or between any parties that may be involved, they still are looking for the betterment of the situation for all. In other words, whoever becomes the president, whoever becomes the senator, they are responsible for improving the situation in the entire country, not just for the Republicans or not just for Democrats. Of course, they may have their political agendas and affiliations, but overall, the objective is to actually move the entire country forward. This is something that works as equally effective as the tool to help, for example, people within a smaller community or even within a family to mitigate the differences. This is a very important and very powerful mediation tool that can help the two parties that cannot come to grips with each other to actually find peace and balance. And this is the tool that's based on awareness of energy resonance. Now, it may be pretty far from your current way of thinking about things. However, if you are watching this, you must be my friend on Facebook. You must be a follower of mine, either on my Facebook pages or within the groups that I manage. And so essentially, you probably would like to learn. I hope you would like to learn about the energy resonance and how to apply this awareness to this amazing practice. So what's energy resonance? Well, first of all, we just realized that everything is made of energy. And obviously, any thoughts, ideas, and thought forms and courses of action have certain energies associated with them. If you feel resonance with a particular course of action, following that course makes you feel stronger. You feel like you're in the flow. You're not struggling, you're not suffering. If you are following the course of action that you don't resonate with, going in that direction is difficult. You feel that you are constantly going against the flow. Or perhaps you're just constantly suffering from either the physical impossibility to move in that direction or psychological stress and anxiety associated with going there. What does it feel like if you're going in the direction that is neither perfectly in alignment with your energy nor in misalignment completely? So in other words, it's neither perfectly good or perfectly bad. Well, those are most directions that we experience in our lives. So in other words, it's 358 degrees likelihood of this directions happening in your life, and only 2 degrees are either perfect alignment or perfect misalignment. Well, so in other words, more than 90%, actually more than 99% of likelihood of you experiencing something that is neither perfectly positive or perfectly negative. As a matter of fact, there is such thing as bell curve, which suggests that the majority of things happen within a relatively short range of middle ground, somewhere close to 50% of resonance or dissonance. So what we do then is we first of all accept that things may not perfectly resonate with me, and if I'm not perfectly in the flow, fine. What is it that I resonate the most with? So in other words, then we no longer are looking for things that are ideal, we are looking for things that we resonate the most with. And those things can be sometimes not fully acceptable, but they are acceptable enough. And that is what we call discernment. So in other words, we are not trying to just look for the ideal, we are looking for discernment between things that we resonate with or not to some degree. Now, once we realize that certain platforms, such as political platforms, may also be not perfectly in resonance with you, or some candidates may not be perfectly in alignment with your energy, that's okay. Then we start looking at what are our options. Well, essentially, if we're looking at the two main candidates, for example, candidates for the political office of the President of the United States, one represents a certain energy, and the other one represents a certain energy. How do you choose between them? Well, you can say, I resonate more with one or the other, but there are people behind each of these candidates, and some of them are not particularly convinced even that they are perfectly in alignment with a candidate, and some of the pieces of their platforms may be interesting to some of these people, maybe even interesting to you, but you may not be fully in alignment with them. So in other words, then we start looking at the broader spectrum. It's not just polarization, it's actually the spectrum of options and opportunities and people that we may resonate with to different varying degrees. That is the key to mastery of energy arts. It is the key to mastery when it comes to finding peace with different people and also finding peace within ourselves. As a matter of fact, it's a lot easier to find peace with other people if we are in peace with ourselves. So, I'm going to stand up now and demonstrate this exercise right now. Just a moment. So, to make sure that I'm still within the frame of this video, the exercise is really simple. I invite you to stand on your feet, just like I did, stood up, and put out both of your hands in front of you, as if you're holding 2 cups or 2 bowls in your hands. And I invite you to imagine that the energy associated with one of the candidates is in the palm of one of your hands. Perhaps it's easier first to connect with energy of the candidate that you particularly resonate with first. So let's go ahead and connect with that energy, whichever hand that is. I invite you to imagine gathering this energy in the imaginary cup or the bowl that you're holding in that hand. Or it can take any shape and form. It can form an energy ball associated with that energy. And take your time to really gather as much of that energy as you feel necessary for this exercise. And when you're done doing that, I invite you to connect with the energy associated with the other candidate, or the other platform, or the other party, on the palm of your other hand. Again, you may imagine gathering some of that energy in the cup or bowl, or an energy ball. Now, these 2 energy balls or energy fields may have a radically different sensation to them. One may feel closer to you, may feel more uplifting, perhaps you may feel warmth or some other sensations associated with that hand. You may have a different set of sensations associated with the other hand. And I invite you to allow these energies to connect with each other, either directly from hand to hand, or through the medium of your body that may serve as a conduit for these energies flowing back and forth as they learn how to communicate with each other energetically and exchange whatever they need to exchange, as well as to learn whatever they need to learn from each other. That's right. There is always room for growth and learning, and this is exactly what's happening right now. Both of these energies that represent certain states of consciousness in your mind are connecting with each other and beginning to learn, and not in the form of a debate, because in the debate they try to prove that their position is right. What they're doing now is they're actually trying to learn what is right about the other position. Is there anything right about it? Of course there is, otherwise it wouldn't exist. It's just you may not resonate with it. However, as you allow this exchange of energies to continue, you may notice that there are some new sensations happening in your hands, your arms, or anywhere else in the body. You may notice how your hands begin to move slightly, as though being animated by these energies that they're holding onto. And I invite you to allow these energies to move your hands in the most spontaneous and unpremeditated manner. It doesn't matter which energy moves first. It doesn't matter which energy moves in one direction or another. Just allow these energies to actually move you. However fast or slowly these energies move, just simply surrender to the flow. Allow them to continue expressing themselves through movement or through other means. Perhaps they may cause some alternate states of consciousness in your mind. The energy in your right hand may be associated with the left hemisphere of your brain. The energy in the left hand may be associated with the right hemisphere of the brain. Well, luckily, you have corpus callosum. You have the part of the brain that facilitates communication between both hemispheres, allowing the transmission of information and energy from one part of the brain to the other and back. And that's exactly what's happening right now. You may even be growing new neurons and new neural pathways in your brain, as well as allowing the movements of your body to unfold spontaneously. Right now my hands aren't moving that much, but I definitely notice the movement. As you're watching this video, you may be noticing that my hands are moving in the most spontaneous way. Even though I'm not trying to move them, they're still having a little bit of movement. That's fine. I wonder how much your hands can do the same. I also noticed that my hands are getting a little bit closer to each other. That's quite okay too. The energy fields associated with each of these hands actually feel like they begin to communicate with each other directly from one palm to the other, as the palms also turn towards each other a little bit more. One a little bit more, the other one a little bit less, but they definitely feel that they have a little bit more in common with each other. They're no longer pulling away from each other, they actually are more connected. That's the energetic event that gives me the sense that something is happening. Some transformation of consciousness is happening. And with that, the energetic exploration leads me down the path of harmonizing these polarities. So instead of polarization and anxiety associated with that, there is actual integration that's happening right now as we speak. And I invite you to allow this integration to unfold in your experience with those energies that you're holding on to and within your brain, within your consciousness.
Now I definitely feel that these energies move a lot more in sync with each other, rather than pulling apart or away from each other or moving in a disharmonious way. They move a lot more in coherence with each other, in concert with each other. Almost like both of these energy fields that I held in one hand and the other came together and formed a more unified, more integrated field of energy. I wonder how long it's going to take you to experience that yourself. That's right. It's not like I'm telling you that you have to bring your two energies together. But most likely, the more they communicate with each other and learn whatever they need to learn from each other and share whatever they need to share, they begin to synergize instead of being a separate duality. They actually start forming a unified field of energy that may flow much more harmoniously, in a way that your body now may feel a lot more together. And not only the body, your mind also may feel together too. By that I mean, you may actually begin to feel how there is much less stress. You're much more in the flow. This flow of energy that guides you is exactly what allows you to experience what we call being in flow. Some people would call it Qigong state if they practice Qigong. Some people, for example, athletes would call it being in the zone. One of my favorite guests on my show, The Secrets of Qigong Masters, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, the author of books on flow, calls it exactly that, flow. The state of flow is exactly what we are looking for, because in that state we experience the most profound sense of wellness, well-being, freedom from stress, anxiety, and suffering. To tell the truth, I experienced a little bit of stress this morning myself. That's exactly why I was inspired to do this practice. And I did not do this practice by myself. I did it with you. And I'm delighted that I had an opportunity to share it with you. And I hope that you experience as much benefit from it as I have. Now, as you're holding onto this energy ball, unified energy field with both your hands, see how you're going to breathe in as much air as you can into your lungs and lift this energy above your head. And then breathe out completely, creating vacuum inside of you. And bring this energy into you so it fills the vacuum, allowing it to go wherever it needs to go in your body, and to empower whatever needs to be empowered. I wonder where in your body it will go. I wonder how much transformation you experience as you integrate this energy into your system. That unified energy that is no longer pulling you apart. Instead, it's actually harmonizing the polarities existing in your consciousness, bringing together those things that perhaps were previously antagonizing each other in your mind. I personally experienced a really profound sense of inner peace right at this moment. I hope you do too. Now imagine what it's like to experience this on a regular basis. Imagine what it's like to live in this state of peace and harmony on a consistent basis.
That's right. That's exactly what I promote, teach, and practice. And I would love to continue working with you, offering you more of the energy-based practices and exercises and meditations. And of course, today, I hope that your dreams manifest in the form of not only the party that you voted for winning, but actually the country winning. The entire nation may actually become better off because you voted, because you not only express your alignment with somebody or a particular platform, but also because you discovered that sense of oneness with all perspectives. So instead of clinging to only one and believing that this is the only one that's right, we open up our consciousness and discover that there are lots of different perspectives, and neither one of them is uniquely right. Let me finish this brief broadcast today by sharing with you a really interesting metaphor. The metaphor of living on an island. You know, I lived on different islands in the Pacific for a number of years, and many of those islands have villages on different sides of the island. Now, when you grow up in an island, your parents, your grandparents, and other villagers probably tell you as you're growing up, you will build your house. When you're grown up, you will build your house facing this particular direction. Because this is the direction we all build our houses in our village. This is the most important direction in our lives, and this is the only right one. Now, of course, if you happen to visit other villages in the island, you may discover that they build their houses facing different directions because the ocean is on a different side. However, all the elders and other villagers in those villages tell the kids growing up in those villages that they will build their houses facing the directions that are specific to those villages. And those are different directions. And then they point their fingers at the other villages, including your village, and say, you don't want to build your house facing those directions. Now, those are really wrong directions. You know, and those people living on the opposite side of the island, they build their houses 180 degrees away from our right direction. That must be really outright evil. Now, you can imagine that this type of indoctrination probably influences a lot of people growing up in each of those villages, unless you're curious enough to explore the island, unless you are free thinking enough to actually become open-minded enough to discover that other directions are neither better or worse than yours. And essentially, the more we traveled around the island, the more we realized that there is no one direction that is good and there is no one direction that is bad. They're all relative to the specific side of the island. And so what happens is that we literally learn how to transcend the limited one-dimensional thinking associated with you have to build your house just this way because this is the only way and every other way is wrong. Now imagine how much more functional of a human being you can be if you allow yourself to tap into the resources associated with other sides of the island that you are. Now, of course, in some old song, perhaps there was a line that said, no man is the island, but guess what? We're using this metaphor because it works. So imagine that you are an island, or perhaps an iceberg, floating in the ocean. And different sides of the iceberg are associated with different energetic ways of being, and of course we all tend to identify with only one part of the iceberg, the one that's sticking above the water, the visible part. You probably agree with me that what we know about ourselves and everything about our lives can be easily associated with just a tiny part of the iceberg sticking up above the water. And of course, there is a huge part of the iceberg, 90+%, that we don't know much about, that we don't have access to because we are too strongly identified with the tip of the iceberg. And so we can tap into the resources available in other parts of the iceberg, even though those parts, that underwater part of the iceberg, the huge part that sustains and supports the existence of the tip, is where all the power resides. And so what we learn as we discover for ourselves the ways to connect with other parts of ourselves, other parts of the iceberg that we are, beyond the tip that we currently identify with, and discover for ourselves how much more power and wisdom resides in other parts of the iceberg, in other parts of ourselves, our consciousness, our psyche. And that's exactly what allows us to experience a greater sense of wisdom, enlightenment, and simply being able to be more functional human beings. And that's exactly what I invite you to experience as you continue your journey with me. I would like to support you on a journey of becoming more functional and more enlightened human being. To discover how to do that, please go to qigongcoaching.com, QIGONG, coaching.com, and check it out. See for yourself how you too can engage in the process of opening yourself up to much greater potential than you even knew was available. And if you check some of the pages on my website, you may see that there are invitations to receive a complimentary coaching session that I may give to you if you want to continue working with me. I will look forward to connecting with you and supporting you on your journey. Until then, namaste.